I would like to welcome you to today's webinar, Successful Digital Transformation, Begin with the End in Mind. All attendees will be on listen-only mode. However, you can submit any question during the webinar and we will answer those later. Let me introduce myself. My name is Carsten Neumann. I manage all professional services and customer support efforts for Ultimus globally. In this role, I work with a great team to develop and implement proven models for customer success. I'm very fortunate to be joined today by two outstanding and qualified guests. I would like to welcome our first guest, Neil Ward-Dutton. He's MWD Advisors co-founder and research director, and is one of Europe's most experienced and high-profile strategic IT advisors and industry analysts. His areas of expertise include digital transformation, business process management, enterprise architecture, and IT strategy. Covering the practical real-world implementation side of digital transformation, we also have with us today Mr. Eric Ritchie. He has over 20 years of experience in the information technology industry. And in 2012, Mr. Ritchie helped co-found Proceed BPM to assist organizations to optimize their critical business processes. Proceed BPM is a US company with a premier reputation and track record implementing BPM-based solutions. And now to the main topic. Digital transformation is much talked about these days. We started a little over a year ago with a series of webinars to address this important topic. Previously, we've invited Forrester Research to guide us through a three-part exploration of the topic, and I strongly advise you to watch later the previous recorded webinars that are available on the Ultimus website. For our fourth webinar today, we wanted to bring up another perspective, so we've invited a luminary, Neil Ward-Dutton, to complete our journey. Digital transformation means different things to different people, so let me make clear what my definition is. Digital transformation means having a seamless, flexible, digital end-to-end experience that optimizes customer experience and operational efficiency. I'm starting with that definition because although we are spending more and more to automate every aspect of our business as fast as we can, the ways we are going about doing it are incompatible with our goal. So we need to begin with the end in mind. At this point, I would like to hand the microphone and screen over to Neil Ward-Dutton to remind us of what that end is. Later, I will come back to explain our approach to get there. So it's my sincere honor to hand over the microphone to Neil Ward-Dutton from MWD Advisors. Neil.
Thank you so much for that very kind introduction. I must apologize, I'm having some connectivity issues. I guess we have two options here. I could ask you please to present for me. That may be the best option. Is that going to be possible?
Let's do so.
Many apologies for the technical trouble here. So please do let me know when you have the presentation available on the screen.
It's there. You can start, please.
Oh, thank you very much. Let me start by giving you a really important fact to kind of anchor the conversation, because I want to start really by talking about what digital transformation means and why it's so important. So we're going to start on slide 2 with a fact about Amazon Web Services, AWS. Now, if you could please click through the build on this slide, that would be very helpful. And what I want to share with you is that every day, AWS, that's the Amazon Web Services platform, adds enough new server capacity to support all of Amazon's global infrastructure, as it was when the company was a $7 billion annual revenue enterprise. And that was in 2004, by the way. So every day now, AWS is growing its capacity by as much as the whole of its capacity was, even when it was a $7 billion company. I mean, that is frankly mind-blowing. The amount of extra capacity that's being added. And it really just shows us how fast this transition to a digital era is occurring. Now, on the next slide, we can see the slightly broader picture. What we see is that there is a very dramatic shift from technology resource scarcity in the industry to abundance. And this isn't just about server capacity, right? It's not just about compute, although that is very, very important. As you can see from this slide, you can look at how the economics of computing have changed over the last 40 years or so. But we also see it in storage, and we also see it in connectivity. And you might ask, why is this really important? Well, it's so important because actually, what I found over the last 2 years of working with senior technology executives, whether that's CTOs or CIOs, other people in similar roles, is that frankly, a lot of them are very like me. And I'm in my late 40s. Yeah, all of my initial training at university and my initial work experience, so as a computer science graduate, was based around this assumption that technology resources are scarce. So computing cycles are really expensive. Memory is really expensive. Bandwidth is really expensive. Disk space is really expensive, and we must not waste them. Everything we did in the way we built systems, the way we tested them, the way we designed them, the way we rolled them out, the way we asked people to use them was all based on this assumption that these resources were scarce. And now, to a rough approximation, this assumption is kind of needs to be completely thrown away, because to a rough approximation, these resources are all free. Yeah, of course, they're not quite free, but very nearly so. And this creates a huge challenge and also huge opportunity. One clear way on the next slide that we see a clear challenge that comes from this new resource abundance, this age of abundance, if you like, is there's also an abundance of competitors, because the barriers to entry to creating new businesses, competitive businesses that work online, these barriers are almost completely non-existent now. And what you can see from this slide here is a collection of logos that are in the financial services industry. These are all digital startups that are focusing on competing against the big banks in particular areas. And that's a lot of logos, but you know what? This is actually just for Holland. Yeah, so these guys are just the digital startups in financial services technology in Holland. And if you were to look at a similar picture for the UK, you would see it is even larger and more populated than this picture. So I guess we all know this, right? But it's really important to have this in the center of your mind, that although many of our technology leaders are trained and almost subconsciously they're programmed to think about technology resources being scarce, in fact, they are incredibly abundant. And that should give us a catalyst and a drive to experiment in different ways. Okay, so but what does it mean for established companies and established organizations? Well, on slide number 5, I'm sharing with you finding from some research we did earlier this year with CIOs of not of digital startups, but of established organizations, asking them about the roles they expected to play in future years. And very clearly, as you can see, the green bars here are where people think their responsibility will grow, and the brown bars are where they expect them to shrink, and the gray is where they expect them to stay the same. As you can see here, there's clear expectations in this group of people being more responsible for driving digital innovation, yeah, and being customer facing. And of course, this is a really good thing. As you can see on the next slide, number 6 here, what's also really interesting from the research I've been doing over the last 18 months with senior technology leaders, I've also in parallel with the survey been doing roundtables and workshops with these people. And we find that they talk in very different ways to how they talked certainly 7, 8 years ago. 7 or 8 years ago, the industry is really driving technology innovation. It was, frankly, it was banking, financial services, it was telecoms, and those guys were out in front. They had big budgets, and they could consistently drive forward and try new things. Most other industries found it very hard to really innovate with technology, apart from in very specific places. But we're seeing that the digital revolution has really started to change this too, because now when we do our workshops and our roundtables, we find that some of the organizations pushing hardest and fastest are actually in very different kinds of business. They're in retail, they're in utilities, they're in travel and transport, they're in consumer packaged goods, pharmaceuticals, hospitality, insurance, and so on. And also we find that the inspiration these people have is very different. When we did some of this research 7, 8 years ago, we found that technology leaders in established organizations they would talk about being inspired by or wanting to kind of work in partnership with IBM, with SAP, with Teradata, with people like that. And now it's very, very different, as you can see from these logos on the left. It's a very, very different set of expectations that these people now have. And what we're really finding is that slowly but surely, organizations are realizing that this whole idea of digital technology is not about a place you go or a destination you end up at. It's more a change to the way you think about change itself. So here on the next slide, what you can see is that it's my attempt to really show how there are two sides to this idea of digital transformation. There are two pieces to the story. On the left, you have, if you like, the destination. People will say, oh yeah, well, we're adopting the cloud. You know, we're adopting platform as a service models. We are adopting connected technologies for our infrastructure, for our devices, and so on. Yeah, so we're using IoT kinds of technology. We're using social media. We're using mobile devices, and we're using big data, and so on. Yeah, so that's all about the what, if you like. Yeah, so these are about the details of platforms and technologies people want to use, and that's fine. But it's just one piece of the picture. The far more important and I think profound piece of the picture of the story is about this idea of changing how you change. And what we find is that the most mature organizations are really what they're doing is creating platforms in their business that enable them to change in new ways. And that's on the right-hand side of this picture. It's really about creating platforms that give them transparent instrumentation of their products, of their services, of their processes. So we have digital products or digitally powered products and services, digital processes. These things they expose their data. They are instrumented. Yeah, so we can look at them and understand exactly what's working and what's not working, what needs improvement. And we can do this as things are happening. This is what digital technology gives us. And then tightly tied to that is then the ability to change in a very agile way. So what we find is that more and more organizations are figuring out that digital transformation is not about adopting one particular technology. And for sure, some organizations will say that for them, it's really about cloud. Some will say, for us, it's really about IoT or mobile or big data analytics or AI or robotics. It's actually about putting platforms in your business that enable you to change in new ways. And that's a much deeper thing. And it's also, it shows that this is not a once only exercise. This is an ongoing journey. It's about building new capability in your business. It's not just about adopting a new technology. And that's really, really important. So if we go on to the next slide, slide number 8, this is something that's really, really important and maybe the most important thing I'll share with you is that different organizations, and I'm sure your organization is part of this picture, different organizations we find tend to start in different places. And it really depends on who's driving a digital initiative. When we talk to organizations where the CMO that the head of marketing or maybe head of sales is in charge of driving digital, when they talk about digital transformation, they're talking about the orange box on this chart. They're talking about how we use digital technologies to engage better and create better experiences for our customers. And, when we talk to organizations where it's really led by innovation teams, and they're looking at how to drive a strategy in a different way, when they talk about digital transformation, they're talking about creating new products, creating new platforms, or building new business networks. When we talk to organizations where it's the COO, the head of operations, who's really driving things, yeah, they're really focused on, not surprisingly, how can we use things like mobile technology, IoT, analytics, predictive technologies to increase our operational efficiency, to reduce failure in our infrastructure and so on. And if we also find, in fact, many times organizations who are led more internally by corporate communications or HR people, and they talk about digital transformation too, and they're really talking about the workplace, and they're talking about employee engagement, intranets, social technologies, mobile devices for field workers and so on. Everybody is right, actually. Everybody sees something different when they look at digital technology, but they're all looking at the same big picture. It's just that we find that different people start from a different perspective. But the really, really important point for us all here today is about bringing these pieces together. Because you know what? Every group shown here has their own perspective on this, yeah? But everybody is really thinking about how can we use digital technology to coordinate resources more effectively. Some people are focused on resources that are external. They're kind of out in the market. They're not controlled by your organization. Some people are looking more at internal resources, things that we control. Some people are looking at resources that are about processes and things, tangible things. Other people are looking at resources that are more about people and their knowledge. And that really determines how things are arranged on slide number 8. But the really important thing to think about is, well, how do we really drive transformation? And it turns out that, as you can see on slide 9 here, it's about how we connect these different views together. Because actually, if you're really transforming, you can't have one without the other. They are all connected. And the reason for this, a big part of the reason for this, is on the next slide here, number 10. It's because many organizations, when they think about digital transformation, they're really driven from the start. The starting point is the customer. And that's really because actually, as you know, many business gurus will tell us, the purpose of a business is to create a customer, right? If you want to be successful, you have to start with the customer. Everything has to start with the customer. We know that people's expectations are changing. They're demanding more sophisticated experiences. They're demanding more transparency, more immediacy. We have to create more integrated, more seamless experiences for our customers. So even if we care primarily about operations today, that has to be influenced by where we're trying to go for our customer. Yeah. And the challenge is, so on the right-hand side here, you can see that organizations the world over are trying to create these more integrated experiences. But at the same time, on the left-hand side, you can see that certainly for any established organization, they've probably spent the last 10 or 15 years actually not integrating, but going the opposite way. If you think about how operational environments have changed and operating models have changed, we now have more and more dispersed organizations. We have more partners. We do more outsourcing, more offshoring. We have more shared services initiatives, more dynamic partner networks, supply chains, and so on. So on the one hand, we have organizations that are more spread out. Yeah, our operations are more dispersed around, but we're trying to create integrated experiences. And this is a real challenge, right? Because these things are pulling in different directions. If we do a slide build here, what you see is that the only way to really bridge this gap, to on the one hand have real integration, and on the other hand support a kind of modern dispersed operation, a globalized operation, is to weave digital threads that pass all the way from the front edge of our organization through our operations and back again. So we need platforms that allow us to share knowledge, coordinate work, create these digital threads, and do that at scale. Okay, this is really super important. It's the only way we can really drive transformation in this new world. If you can't do that, then you're going to end up with silos again, with different initiatives that are all disconnected, they're not coordinated, and that's going to be bad news for everybody. Now, it turns out that, as you can see on the next slide here, number 11, modern workflow applications are actually super at creating digital threads. Because if you think about what we need, well, you know what we need to as you can see here on the right, we need a platform that allows us to share knowledge and coordinate work across teams, departments, and even business entities. And of course, as we remember from the platform discussion just a minute ago, we also need platforms that make it easy to be agile, to change behavior and policy, and underneath that also give us that tracking, that instrumentation. And if you think about modern BPM and workflow platforms, actually they do all these things really, really well. It's just that often we don't think about them in this way. So it's a really, really good fit. But you know what? Here's a big challenge that we all have. On the next slide here, it's really about how do we scale success? Because modern workflow applications and platforms, they give us a real advantage, in creating these digital threads. And to have one project that goes well it's not like completely easy. We can do it with our eyes closed, of course, but it's easier now than it's ever been. So having one successful project, that's not normally a problem. Having 2, 3, 4 maybe is also not a problem. Where it becomes a problem is if we're trying to really transform our business and to create lots of threads to connect different capabilities, functions, teams, how do we scale that? And not everybody can sustain a major investment in a center of excellence, right? When you look at a center of excellence, it normally has 3 roles, and different organizations will have different mixes of these 3 roles. We have infrastructure management piece, we have a knowledge management piece, and we have an execution management piece. And different organizations will put different emphasis on this, but they tend to all be there, and they're all about scaling success. So having a central authority that can help us with these 3 things. Now, cloud platforms can help us a bit because they take, as you can see on the slide build here, they take responsibility for much of the infrastructure management piece. So if you think about what we really need from a COE, a center of excellence, in order for us to scale success, well, cloud platforms can really help us here. But cloud platforms by themselves don't really help us at all with knowledge management or execution management. There's still a real need to have some really super knowledge and reusable assets here, and that's really tough to do. Now, on number 13, what you can see here is that we're hearing this loud and clear from the people we are surveying. We know that they are under huge pressure to deliver. They're struggling to deliver on the demand that they even have today to develop new applications, to deploy new automation capabilities. And we're also finding that technology leaders are struggling to really have the right tools and capacities in place to be able to collaborate with business people effectively. So on the one hand, we find that very strongly they're telling us they can't really meet the demand they have. And on the other hand, they're also telling us we don't really have the capability to collaborate effectively. We can't really, we don't have the right tools, capabilities today to enable business people to drive that demand themselves and to drive solutions. So this is really where, this is a great introduction point really for Ultimus and the CPS technology. Just to review where we're at here on the last slide, I've talked about digital transformation and about how it's really about a new way to change. I've talked about how really everybody starts in different places, but to really transform, we need to create digital threads that pass through multiple parts of our organizations, allow us to share knowledge, coordinate work. I've talked about how workflow and BPM platforms give us the foundation for building and weaving those threads. But I've also shared how doing that at scale is really hard. We need, frankly, better ways to build capability, better ways to reuse capability, and better ways to collaborate. And apologize once more for the technical problem, and I'll hand back to hosts for the next part.
Thank you, Neil, for that excellent presentation. Even with the technical problems, I think we made it. So with that review of where we need to go and why we need to do it, let me tell you how Ultimus can help you achieve it. Today's expectations are very similar, independent from industries or regions. So solutions have to work seamlessly together. They have to be flexible to adapt to a changing demand or regulations. They have to provide a digital end-to-end experience, can be provided and changed faster than ever, and for sure, they have to work perfectly on each device. So, but let's start with the problem. And the problem is that the way we approach automating our business is fundamentally inconsistent with where we need to do. We face a dilemma, and whether it's a SaaS or building application with development platforms like low-code, the problem, and this is the fundamental blocker of digital transformation, is we are thinking in terms of individual applications, solving one problem at a time. When we do that, we end up with dozens or hundreds of applications and business processes that aren't connected to each other. They are built very differently, require professional services and custom programming, and involve lots of training. Just have a look at this picture. That's not transformation. It's a multiplication of the complexity and the technical depth we have today. Is there a way to ending up like this? Is there a way to get the software we need quickly without breaking the bank and without complexity? Well, we think there is a solution, and the solution is begin with the end in mind. And begin with the end in mind means we need to think strategically about our goal. If we want a seamless, flexible, connected digital end-to-end experience, we need to rethink how we create software. We need to change our thinking from individual applications one at a time, whether handcrafted or with a development platform. Instead, we need to think in terms of a modern industrial approach where you engineer families of software built in standardized ways with common pre-built parts that inherently work together. The same way we produce, for example, cars. Doing this ensures we are eliminating one-offs, configuring products to each individual need, and manufacturing them on demand with robotics. This is how every other industry has achieved order of magnitude improvements in speed of delivery, quality, and costs. And that's the idea behind composed process solutions, a digital automation factory that accelerates digital transformation by bringing modern engineering principles to software development. And that allows us to automate all our business processes and do it much faster, much better, and much cheaper. Well, you know, when you analyze business processes like we did at Ultimus, we looked at over 1,400 business processes we've automated during the past 20 years and in more than 80 countries around the world. You see something very interesting. Business process software applications are really quite similar. In fact, they are more alike than they are different. The technology requirements are quite well known. The things that make applications powerful and functional are quite well known. And even some of the business requirements of individual applications are common across applications. And this is true whether we are talking about customer support, sales, accounting, or manufacturing, whether it's in banking, in life sciences, or legal, whether it's in North America, the EU, the Gulf, and even whether it's a mobile device or a desktop. So let me show you what I mean. You can think of every business process application as having 6 parts. They all have a requester, a person or a company that wants something. They all have a product or a service that is requested, maybe to fix a problem, to report a defect, get a loan, or get reimbursed for travel expenses. There are documents that support the request, an ID card for the loan, or a photo showing maybe the reason for a complaint. There are business rules, validations, policies, regulations. So we need to know if the request is complete, if it fits with our rules, and the requester is eligible. The process needs to be routed through a workflow, who is supposed to do what, when, and under what circumstances. And finally, there's a history, so you know who did what, when. We can use that universal pattern of business software to do something very interesting. Create a uniform structure, a uniform architecture for all of them, and build them all the same way. Just like people are built with 2 arms on the side, 2 legs on the bottom, 2 eyes in front, a head on top, a basic structure optimized over thousands of generations of evolution. Take all that what we've learned creating business applications over the years, and we can create a standard optimized structure for all of them. The complexity of doing something different really isn't worth it. So look at this. Here's the requester. That's where I can describe the requester, their name, contact information like email, mailing address, and telephones, maybe personal information like date of birth. Then you find the service. And this is where I describe the product or service they want. The document concern, where the documentation is provided, can be verified and confirmed. Here you find the rules and validations. The workflow, who does what, when, and under what circumstances, and a table to see the process steps. And last but not least, here's the history of a request. And you can always see who did what by when. And you know, even if you have very different kind of solutions, like a customer quote or see the customer onboarding, it's completely the same. The only difference here is the billing information. And this can be activated by just 1 click. So no line of coding, just to click. So as you can see, a single structure can apply to every business process application. If we create that once in advance, it saves a ton of time in development. It's consistent, so everyone knows how to use it. You can present a great deal of relevant information in an intuitive and easy to digest manner. And it's easy to maximize responsive design and device detection. So you don't have to do any extra work on mobile. CPS does it all for you. And you see, it looks exactly the same like the desktop version. And it's also built in without any additional line of code. So let's take this a step further. Once we've realized that a standard structure and UI can apply to any application, it becomes very straightforward to see what capabilities you need to each of those 6 concerns. And those are also remarkably similar, and you can build them in advance and connect them logically to each other. So let me give you another example, which is a very different one. It's new matter intake. It's for law firms to identify potential conflicts of interests. Let's look into the documents. Here you can see there are the documents. You have a checklist of all documents related to this process. You can easily upload documents. You can decide to upload maybe 1 document or multiple documents. It's easy to upload. And as soon as they appear in the system, you can find the documents. You see, you can view them. You can delete them. It can be verified. Maybe in the next step, it can be reviewed as valid. And you can even post it. And it's always the same for every different kind of solution. Now here, see the business rules and policies. You can standardize their presentation, waive requirements if you have the rights, and guide people to fix the problem, making sure they fix them all before they send the request to the next step. You see the process map, a very simple one in this case, and you have the history. Now there's no history as we didn't start the process, but this is where the history is located. And one more example, you might have a complicated request or get interrupted in the middle. So CPS provides the ability to save your work and to load it again from the drafts. And what about automating processes across the globe? You don't want to create separate applications for each region. CPS allows you to specify only the differences, perhaps a different rule or a document or data requirement in one country versus another, and the translation strings. And you have solved another business problem quickly and in a common, manageable way. Now you can see the application is in English. Now let's try the same in Spanish. And here's also Arabic. So see, right to left is already built in. And there is another interesting option, the self-service. You may want customers to initiate a process. Self-service is just a variant, not a new application. With CPS, you just exclude what you don't want to share or isn't appropriate. In this case, the process information and the history information is not there. And you've created a variant that can be integrated in your existing web pages. These are just a few examples of the common needs of business solutions that can be built in advance without professional services or custom programming. You know, the kinds of things that make digital transformation very difficult, slow, and complex. All done and no longer part of development and maintenance. So what is CPS development? Well, it's just defining what you need to know about the customer. So here we can see the requester. And about the product. So on the service tab, what documentation is required? What business rules and policies apply? And who is supposed to do what when? That's it. And you have a very powerful, very complete software application. It works on any device automatically. And you can define other applications and other variations of it, like one for another region, just by specifying the differences. And this is huge because it's very fast and makes them flexible. You can easily change them at a global, a family, or individual level. And one more thing, because CPS solutions are families, all built the same way. They inherently share data, no more connecting individual solution islands. And you can reorganize and present that data any way you want. So you can do things like get a consolidated customer view. You see all the customers here. And sales might be interested in opportunities that you find here, but they can see the support issues that might impact the sales as well here in the bottom. And support can see if a customer has big deals, so they can prioritize their work better without any extra work. So if we want to be automated and digital from end to end, connected, seamless, flexible, then we can no longer use development tools that create things one at a time in non-standard ways, each an island. We need a digital automation platform, one that's built from scratch with the end in mind, and we call it composed process solutions. So, and now I'm happy to bring Eric Ritchie on stage. We have shown you the theory behind composed process solutions. At this point, I want to hand the microphone over to Eric Ritchie of Proceed BPM to tell you how it has worked for him in practice. Eric, please.
Thank you, Carsten, and thank you everyone for joining us today. As Carsten mentioned, over the last 20 years, I have built hundreds of workflow applications, processes, and other tools for customers. For the most part, these processes were built using .NET, jQuery, AngularJS, and other front-end tools, requiring developers, workflow specialists, and subject matter experts to collaborate. While the projects were successful, they often could take months to complete, increasing cost. This greatly limited which processes were selected for automation, and CPS has been a game changer in that regard. Earlier this year, we approached the clerk's office in Boone County, Kentucky. We found they were frustrated when considering standard applications to resolve their inefficient business process challenges. The off-the-shelf solutions did not address their specialized business needs and requirements, and they were shocked at the high cost of adding or customizing off-the-shelf solutions. As such, they were resigned to using labor-intensive resources to address unique process needs manually. After some discussion, we decided that the time tracking and paid time off or PTO accrual process were a great candidate for CPS automation. As you can see, the existing process was very labor intensive. They used paper forms to report semi-monthly time and time off requests. It required users to calculate their time manually, required supervisors to check those calculations and accruals and business rules and manually sign off. The paper time cards had to be sent by courier from different buildings and sent to bookkeeping for verification. The bookkeeping department had to calculate and track accumulated paid time off and record it in a notebook. All the time was then transcribed into a spreadsheet that was manually uploaded to the state. As you can see, this process was time-consuming, labor-intensive, and prone to errors. Within just a few weeks of discussions and configuration, 3 CPS solutions, or a family, were configured. Boone County now had electronic forms accessible from home and office, automatic routing, automatic calculations, removal of the bookkeeping step for verification, and the generation of an Excel file to upload to the state payroll system automatically. As you can see, they obtained a lot of benefits from a custom workflow solution in a short amount of time. So now let's actually look at these family of solutions for Boone County. Users will log on to the application via a web browser, either through work or a personal device. Once authenticated, the user is directed to the Initiate area, where they can see all the process to which they have access. As you can see, the Boone County users have access to a family of solutions in the area of time tracking. Through the web client, the users can request paid time off for sick time, vacation time, comp time, or unpaid time. They can cancel a paid time off request, and they can also report their bi-monthly payroll time sheets. First, we will look at the time off request process. From our Initiate tab, we can double-click the time off request process to initiate a new time off request. The form utilizes, as you can see, the built-in 6 concern approach of CPS: requester, service, documents, decisions, process, and history. On this first tab, the requester's information is pulled in based on the user's logon, so we can determine their name, department, employee, or PERNer number, and other relevant data simply from their logon, save in data entry. The user is also able to see a report on the number of vacation hours, sick hours, and comp hours they have accrued, how many they have scheduled, and how many are remaining. Previously, this information was only available in a binder held by the bookkeeping department. This was a major pain for this customer, as in the old way, they would have to call someone and ask, do I have enough vacation time to take off next week? In the new way, they can simply open the form and look. And because the data is all tied together between time cards and vacation requests, this only took a matter of hours, not days, to configure and display to the user. The traditional approach would have taken much longer. In the services tab, you will see also that there's a required field for supervisor to select. We'll leave that blank for now. The service tab is where the user identifies, or the system identifies what is being requested. In this case, a paid time off request. You can see that the form you can expand to see what days you've already taken off. As you can see, I'm already planning on taking off a long weekend in October for vacation and a doctor's appointment in November. I will add some time off for this week, so that September 28th may be a vacation day, and September 29th maybe some compensation time. I've also would like to take some time around the Thanksgiving holiday. But I know that we have a business rule that only 2 people may be off on any one day in a department. Previously, I would have to ask around or call my supervisor to find out who had already requested off on certain days. Again, because this data is available between the family of processes, this can simply be displayed. So by typing in November, I can see that on November 22nd, 2 people have already requested off. Yet only 1 has requested off on the 21st. So I can ask for November 21st and safely assume that it will be granted. Next, we'll go to our Decisions tab. The Decision tab automatically, based on flags set during configuration, can tell us when business rules have not been met. As you can see, we left the supervisor field blank, and it's alerting us to that. Also, it's telling us that the comp time has exceeded the value that's allowed. By clicking either of these, it will take us automatically to the section that's been violating a rule. This is all out-of-the-box configuration and took no additional time to configure except for checking a few boxes. We'll notice here that I've requested 7 hours of comp time. However, I only have 4 hours available, so the system will not let me proceed. I can simply change this to vacation, select the supervisor, and return to my Decision tab. I now have no notification messages, and I am allowed to proceed. After submitting this request, if I were to need to cancel one of my vacation requests, I can do so from the same Initiate section. You'll notice that this entire Requester tab is entirely reused from the Time Off Request screen. There was no additional configuration needed. We displayed the same user information, the same accrual totals, and the same supervisor selection. This could, of course, have been changed, but since the requirements were the same for the entire family, 100% of this code could be reused. Again, we could reuse the departmental list and my approved time as well. And we simply show a list of dates that we want to request off. So I will choose to request off or to cancel the request for November 1st. Again, I can submit that request. In my inbox, I now see, as a supervisor, 2 requests, one for time off and one for cancellation. The supervisor who had been routed this request can open the form and look at the Service tab and see that I'm requesting 9/28, 9/29, and November 21st off. The user can also look at the department and see if there are any conflicts for those dates. In addition, the user could decide to either accept or reject. If they reject, they can enter a reason. We'll accept this request. Similarly, the user can open and review a cancellation request. Clicking on the Services tab, they can see that I've asked to reject my request for November 1st. In this case, I can reject it. Finally, we'll take a look at the third solution in our family, the time card submission process. Again, you will notice the same accrual list and user information reused from the previous processes. Here, the user can enter in their time for the month. You'll notice that the 2 vacation requests that I put in for this week for the period of September 16th to the 30th are automatically pulled into my time card because they have been approved. This keeps me from forgetting to report that time and saves data entry. Again, since the processes are tied together, this data is all available, and very little effort was needed to bring this data in to the time card process. You'll see that we have weekly summaries. We break out our time versus regular, overtime, vacation, sick, comp, holiday, bereavement, and prepare the list of time in a format that will be needed by the state to be paid. Should I go to my Decisions tab and try to continue, you'll see that I have some errors. The user is not allowed to report no time for a week, so something must be entered. This was another large pain for the customer because often users would forget to submit time or forget to submit their vacation or comp days for accrual purposes. By simply making this field required, the decision tab is automatically configured to alert the user and not let them proceed. However, they can save and close or use save and close and come back later once they've figured out what they need to do. So in summary, these three solutions were very quick to develop. It took weeks, not months. The code was reusable. There were many out-of-the-box features, but it's still fully customizable. And enhancements, which there have already been a few, often take only minutes and not days. Thank you, Carsten. I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much, Eric, for this impressive demonstration of your solution. Well, our conclusion is that there are ways to achieve the digital transformation quickly, but it's about starting with a new thinking, with the end in mind. And this means from single solutions to families of solutions, from a craftsman approach to an industrial approach, from custom development to a configured solution, and from islands to connected. So with CPS, we take advantage of what we have learned. We eliminate all those things do over and over again, all those things developers do in an inconsistent, error-prone, time-consuming, and expensive way. Instead, do them once, in advance, in a standardized, consistent, and repeatable way in technology. So it's fast, we can apply it to all our business processes, and we have a common intuitive look and feel for a consistent experience across applications and devices. And the applications are managed as families. They are designed to inherently and seamlessly share data, allow insight and context to be shared across the enterprise. So with CPS, a company can be a true one company, instead of a collection of individual products and processes. So we hope you found today's webinar valuable. Before we end, let me thank you, Neil, for describing the needs to succeed in the digital transformation process, and thanks to Eric for demonstrating the practical benefits of using CPS to create business applications. Regarding CPS, I realized there's a lot to take in. Industrialized software engineering and composed software families is an entirely new paradigm and one with enormous advantages. So the best way to understand the power of this new paradigm of composed process solutions is to see it in action. We have two options for that. Well, you can register for a test drive. A test drive lets you use a CPS application in a variety of different process roles and scenarios, so you can see at your own pace just how powerful applications can be that are implemented in the new way. The other option is to request your own proof of concept. Give us an hour or so of your time to describe what you need. We will develop in the next day using CPS and show it to you the day after or whenever it's convenient. So CPS is so fast, we do this for free. You only pay us if you decide to put this in production. So CPS opens a new frontier of business software and for digital transformation. We are very proud of it and honored by the fantastic customer feedback we've gotten. So now I think it's time for some questions. I've already gotten some, thanks. Okay, let's start with a question to Eric. Eric, during the presentation, it is said that CPS is different. You can do solutions faster and solutions fit together. You as a workflow consultant did several solutions for Boone County. What is your view on that? What is the customer feedback? Eric, please.
Thank you, Carsten. Yes, we definitely did multiple solutions for Boone County, and I think my initial feedback is, having done many solutions for many customers, that it really did take weeks and not months. I was very skeptical when I first began using or heard about CPS that it would truly be in that time frame, but was pleasantly surprised that was true. Another piece of that puzzle, we talked about the fact that mobile was supported out of the box, and it was not in the scope for Boone County. Yet I found that the users were approving time cards on the weekends. And when I asked them about that, they were doing it, from restaurants and bars on their mobile devices. So without us even really testing it, it had worked out of the box. And as for customer feedback, you can't get any better feedback than the fact that the customer is already excited about their next solution. They would like to incorporate their scheduling process into the family. And again, it will share many of the same features. So they're already excited about incorporating the scheduling process into their family of solutions. That's the best feedback you can get, I think.
Yes, I can believe that. Thanks, Eric, for that. Neil, there are two questions to you. Does this all mean we do not need to worry about a COE anymore? First question.
Yeah, hi there. No, not really. It doesn't mean you can just completely forget about the functions that a COE can provide. Whether you call it a COE, of course, or not, is not so important. But those three elements, right? Your ability to really help the wider organization make the right decisions about infrastructure and deployment, make the right decisions about best practices, integration patterns, making investment cases, helping make sure that projects are managed consistently and that you have a consistent approach to discovery and architecture and so on. These things, they don't go away, but they are probably made easier. In fact, if you have, with something like CPS, really what you're getting is kind of like a turbocharging device, right? So it really kind of fosters this reuse. It fosters a good architectural practice. It fosters a consistent method and approach to discovery and so on. So I think you do still need a lot of the functions of a COE, but if you integrate it into a tool like CPS, then it makes your job a lot easier, basically.
Thank you. And I just continue with the next question to you, Neil. What about mobile app development? Is that something separate?
Well, yeah, it depends, really. I mean, as I think we saw really nicely from Eric's discussion just a minute ago, mobile app development can absolutely be substituted by some of what you get with something like CPS here, right? Of course, there are some kinds of mobile apps you may want to deliver to your customers or to your suppliers or something where you really want to have a very customized experience, a very customized UI, interactive, features. But if what you essentially want to do is help people in the field take action on information, make decisions quickly, review submissions and so on, then actually I think a lot of organizations, they kind of they go too far, right? They over-engineer solutions, and the kinds of things you can get with something like CPS, you can cut out a huge amount of demand by just accepting the out of the box capabilities you get with something like CPS.
Okay, thank you. And as we're running out of time, I just take one question to Ultimus. There was a question, do you already have a case management solution ready to use? Well, yes, we already have the case management system. And by the way, we are currently working on a workflow-based project management solution as well. I think a very interesting topic, as we see a lot of demand in this area. And you see, this is combining the workflow capability, with the ability to manage multiple tasks in parallel. And I think that's so very interesting. So we're happy to contact you on this as well. There are many more questions, and we're happy to answer these directly. In closing, thank you again for joining us today. If you would like to see the webinar again or the first webinar in the series, please go to ultimus.com, videos and webinars. Take care and goodbye.